So when we did the SAP sales, right? So when we do the sales, there is one step, I forgot it's 13 or 11. We create a billing, right? So create a billing to the customer we sold the merchandise. And this is like your invoice or billing number, right? That's the ID, so billing ID or billing code. We have 9 different billings, and that's the invoice date. We get these dates directly from the SAP, right? This is the data we got from the SAP system, for example. And each invoice, we have the related customer. Some of them are repeating, right? So we have like A, B, C, D, F, or like repeating customers. And we have the invoice dollar values, right? So just like when we create the billing, you need to specify this related to the sales. But then, and this is like your raw data, right? So you have different billing time, different billing amount. But for analytics, right? So because if I'm looking for the raw data, there is no information ready to be used. So I couldn't really make a decision or inform the decision based upon the original billing only. I want to have a summarize, right? So based upon our company's credit policy, I want to see which account receivable already past due and how long they're past due date. And is there any significant or serious problem? Like I want to check, do most customers become delinquent or only is rare cases, right? So the account receivable, aging analysis, and the related decisions. But if I look for the raw billing or raw invoice, I have no any idea about this. So first I'm going to add a few data columns so we can get our idea and more clear. First, let's assume our company has, this is the original invoice date, right? So invoice, for example, our credit policy is like N30. So so our credit policy is N30. So what it means by N30 for accounts receivable management? So what it means N30? So means you give a credit period 30 days for the customer make full payments. That's without a penalty charge, right? So that basically means the bill is due after 30 days of the billing time or the invoice date. So first I will create a invoice due date, right? So which is not available in the original data we got from the SAP system. So I will do this very quickly. So I will add a 30-day to the original invoice date. So that will be the invoice due date. I can do this very easily in the Excel. Is very smart. Is a data variable. So I can just add a 30. So add a 30 to each of the original invoice date. That's give me the due date of each billing or invoice. Okay, this is the first one. Then I will just copy, right? So drag the formula to fill the rest of the rows, right? So you know this Excel function, right? So formula, the data field. So fill the formula and the data to the remaining of the column. Or you can do it horizontal, right? But this is for the column. So that's give me the due date for each invoice. And now I want to know, for example, I'm analyzing all of the invoice like as of today, right? So in accounting, normally we analyze, for example, I'm just make up a time, okay, because this is 2022. For example, I'm now is, so I'm put I manually input a analyzing date, okay, like current date. Okay, current date is June 30th, 2022. And you actually, if you are really doing this in real time, you can use a formula to let the system come up with the today's date. So I can use it. Remember that there is a formula. Okay. So if you want to find out the today's date, right? So it's a dynamic one, like a flexible. So you can use the today formula to find the today's date. So that's like give you flex, like a real-time analysis, right? So because I'm doing it for a demo data, okay, not real time, but you can do this. Okay, I will move it to this side. So suppose assuming I'm on the current date, okay, I'm analyzing the aging of my receivables on June 30th, 2022. So I'm trying to see the age of the invoice. So age means between today, the current date, and the due date, how many days already passed. So now let us calculate the days, the aging of different invoices. It should be the current date minus each of the invoice due date. So I'm referring to current date. When you're referring to this fixed date, you want to have a dollar sign so you can fix that value to the current time. So I'm going to use this dollar B and dollar 4. So referring to this fixed date, frozen it rather than let it change. Or if you don't put the dollar sign, the value will continue to rate the following and your formula will get wrong. Okay, so I need to put it as a fixed. So minus each of the individual invoice date. So it's becoming a number, okay, the date past due. So first one, same thing, I will quickly fill the remaining rows for date past due. This is not very good, right? So you see it. We also already, and because we are just doing a demo, okay, like in reality, you may not have that long time, but I just do a demo. So age of the invoice, you can see 30 is our maximum time. You can see many of the customers already passed the due date. And the number of days overdue, I can use the age of the invoice minus 30, right, which is my normal collection period. And
I have a question, Dr. Yang. So on your what is 6 where it says 27 days, I have a value of like incorrect.
This one?
Yeah, like why is that? Because I have the same thing, but I don't have 27 days. So it's like you said, take the current date minus the invoice date. Mine didn't
Right,
come
but you needed to,
with
for the
the
part,
dollar sign.
like see the formula, you know, like the first one, you need to have a dollar sign before the column and before the row. So we are fixing the current date. If you don't use a dollar, it will continue to rate the remaining. The calculation will be wrong. If that's the case. If you continue to have, I can check after we finish. Okay, like, but let me clear this.
I got it. I'm good.
Okay, good. I'm clear the formats. Okay, so we can start new, right? So you have this age of the invoice, right? You know how old is the receivable, and I want to further know like how many days past due, right? Like 30 days is a regular. So I use each of them minus 30, which is my regular full payment period. So I have this 30, 60, and we can see. So date past due. This is a unique, right? So minus 3, this is the only something, right? So it's not past due 8, right? So you got a negative 3 days. So that's 3 days before the past due time. Okay, like because we are just trying to do some demo. And that's really the data I want to summarize, right? So data past due related to each invoice and each customer. Yeah, that's something I want to find out. But there's more things I can analyze this data and present to the users. First, I want to have some color, right? So like they call conditional formatting. I don't know, have you tried this or not? Because right now, all of the data, right, have the same font, same color. I want to have some warning related to the, like maybe I want the like more days due, I want the color more dark, or you can have a color palette indicating the overdue dates. So the newest version of Excel is very handy. Okay, I found out there is a quick way we can do the called conditional formatting or quick analysis. So there are multiple ways you can do. You can highlight your data and do the conditional formatting, or you can do some quick analysis from here. Okay, let's click on this. You can see there are some quick tools you can use to analyze the data you highlighted. You can already show some, where I put, did you see this trend, the arrow, right? So means like, I don't know, it's comparing from the, between the one and we have the column. I don't know, but I'm not using this, but you can see it's really some thing you can directly apply. But I'm trying to use some color skill. You can see here. They already tried to help me visualize the number using different colors. So give me, right now, I use this. For the Excel, they are trying to interpreting the negative as a bad thing, right? So that's probably they use the red color to warn us. But in here, the red is actually better, right? So the most green one is the longest overdue, right? So, but anyway, you can change your color palette. So you can use a different color palette, use a conditional formatting. So I'm not really teaching an Excel class in details, right? So we focus on the analytic part, but that means you can use different ways to caution people, right? Or to caution myself, which of the receivable I need to really pay attention, right? So really past due a long time, okay, conditional formatting. And I also can do some data like descriptive statistic, like the total or average of the past due, right? So I think you probably know this formula. I can do a average, right? So very quickly, I can do the average using the data range. So I'm including an active, or you can eliminate if you don't. But anyway, this is the average past due date. Because the total is not meaningful, right? So there is no meaning if I get the total or summation. But average, like the Mohammed just mentioned, average days for customer to pay bills or overdue date, 36 is not very good, right? So if you are marketing people or account receivable managers, what's happening, right? So what's your diagnostic? Can you use it to predict for the future what actions you can take to reduce this average payment time? To see my thing, so now we have the data for the descriptive purpose. So we have the number of days overdue for each invoice and also the average. Definitely the 36 is too long, right, for the average date past due. So the next step for your data analysis, we'll want to ask the reasons. So why we have this much longer overdue date. So you might to check the accounts receivable management policies and procedures. For example, we may not have a effective customer credit history check. So you didn't really secure the quality of the customers. So overall, they become delinquent over time. Or we don't have efficient management of the billing collection, right? So like there is really no tracking, like the account receivable customer management. So we may want to enhance the management in this part of the job and some other reasons. So after you identify the reasons cause this extra long time, then you can develop strategies to handle the situation so we can make improvement in the future. So it's all the sequential steps in the data analytics, and finally, it will help you to make the related decisions. So finally, let me show you another very critical tools we used in Excel for analyzing the data. So to do data analytics, we call pivot tables. Pivot table is a very powerful tool, so we can slice and dice data in different ways based upon your interest. For us to create a pivot table, first we need to identify the data range we want to do the analysis. In here, I'm not including the first few rows because those are not really my primary data. So I will select my data range. The original invoice and the different calculation columns. I'm not including the average date because that's some summary statistics. For you to convert a pivot table, you make sure all of the data in the data range, there is no missing data, no empty cells, and double check all of the data are correct. So you need to do clean the data, make it standardized. If you have empty numbers of cells in here, you may run into problems later when you run the pivot tables. So I choose my data range, and we can start the pivot table from different ways. I just show you one major thing you can do. We can insert a pivot table. So the very left, okay, so pivot table, and it will let you confirm your data range. As long as I put my mouse inside the data range before, so this table or the data range should already pop up. So you just need to confirm. And I will let the results show in a new worksheet, okay, rather than in the existing worksheets that might be too mess up. So I will just use the default. And then you come to a new worksheet, and the left side you will see the result after we select the different columns or the rows for analyzing the data. So this is the place where you are going to see the results. And your main selection will be on the right. So field list. If you don't see the field list, check in here. Okay, you may disable it. So you didn't display. So if you don't see the field choices, just click. You can see here. I click, it disappear. When I click one more time, it will just show up. And in the top, you have all of your data columns with the name we already have from the original data set. And in the bottom, there are 4 different places you can choose and place the interested columns. Most often, we are choosing, it's like a row and a column construction. So the rows I normally will choose, for example, I try to analyze the grouping of the days past due. So I will choose the number of the days overdue as the row choice. So you can see it's listing the individual overdue days from my original data set. I want to summarize the total dollar value for each of these past due account receivables. So I'm going to drag the amount to the value. So value is normally your column choices. And for dollar values, the default calculation is sum, is like the total. That's actually we want. But you also can change the calculation to average, to maximum, minimum, or count of the variables. So other calculation choices. And how I can do other things, I can click on this arrow. and choose the last one, the value field settings. From here, you can choose the other calculations. Even you can do some multiplications. And this is the sum. Okay, you also can change the name. I will just say the total, right? So total amount. Or can say total receivable amount. Or you can directly change the name over here. So right now I have a simple pivot table. So I'm trying to show for each the date, range, the data past due, how much is the total account receivables. And if I have more, because right now I only have 9 rows of data. So, but imagine if you are handling the real accounts receivables daily, weekly, monthly, you may have thousands or like hundreds or even millions of transactions for the receivable. I want to group them into a reasonable number of group, like the range group, so I can check the total receivables. So I can do some grouping based upon the individual values. So you can just click on any of the value from the like this overdue date and double right click. You will see grouping and ungrouping choices. Group or ungroup. Also, you can do the grouping. So let me see here. And you can do, I believe, the design for pivot table. Okay, we can choose, not design, data, and group or ungroup. Okay, as the menu choices. Okay, there are different ways you can do that. So for example, I will go from here. I just click on any row of the data and do grouping. And the group that's already give you the minimum and the maximum. Okay, that's the total data range. And you also can adjust the incremental value. For example, I want to show a incremental of 30 days. So every 30 days as a group. So I will change the 10 from 10 to 10 from 10 to 30. Starting at -3. Okay, if you don't want to start with -3, for example, I just choose 0 and you can do that. So let's click on OK and you can see the pivot function will group the individual values to the range, okay, as based upon our choice. I have 5 ranges for our original data and you can adjust the range always. And it gives you the total account receivable balance in each of the overdue range of data. Again, if you want to know which customer fall in each of the data range, I can just add the customer name as a row choice under the number of data past due. Okay, my main row data is the past due date, the grouping, and then I also want to have a list for the customers under this range. So combined, now you can see which of the receivable, okay, corresponding to the original, which group I have the most account receivable balance, and which customer I really need to pay attention and work on the customer to get the receivable back. Okay, just a very simple initial practice for accounts receivable. Okay, again, that's our original descriptive data, and we can do diagnostic and furthermore predictive or even prescriptive. Thursday will continue. Okay, this is only like a in-class practice, not really assignment. From Thursday, we will formally practice the lab assignments in chapter 10.